This is Geek Gab with your host, Dornall, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Monday, May 26, 2025. Today we're going to be talking about Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. We're going to be talking about Burial Ground, a horror movie from the early 70s. Apparently, I'm in my early 70s phase for watching movies recently. And we're also going to be talking about Horror Express, a movie with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, a horror movie also from, no, hold on. Let me surprise you. Also from the early 70s. And we're going to be talking about maybe some news that came up, maybe some role-playing stuff, maybe some board game stuff, and anything else that comes to mind. Dornall,
Yo,
you have anything to throw out before we get to the movies?
no, it has been a week. Happy Memorial Day. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I said that. I sent that out in the announcements that it is a special Memorial Day episode of Geek Gab, and that we have uh, we have I don't think we've ever done a show on Memorial Day before. I could be wrong. We have in my family, I have several different veterans, several different people who were ex-members of the military who are no longer on active duty, but several different ones who served in wartime and in combat. So my dad is a member of the American Legion, and he spent today with the American Legion going around to the various graveyards in the area, putting bouquets on the graves of all the soldiers and veterans for all the cities around the valley where I live. And then, so that took basically all day. And I would like to remember specifically both of my grandfathers, one of whom was in the military during World War II, and one of whom fought in the infantry in Korea during the Korean War. And so, yes, today's Memorial Day, where we remember all of those who died in war, fighting for their country, and who, as the speech, I believe Abraham Lincoln said, gave that last full measure of devotion. So may God bless them, and may they rest in joy in the next life.
Rest in peace. That was nice.
So if we can move on to I will say this, I have seen a lot of people today on Twitter posting about their memories because we are just a few years past the end of a generation long war in Afghanistan and a shorter war, but still quite intense in Iraq. And the casualty numbers don't tell the full story of how intense the fighting in either of these wars were, because we had very excellent medevac units who were able to get wounded soldiers out of the combat zone into hospitals and save their lives, soldiers who would have died on the battlefield in any previous conflict. Even as recently as, you know, Desert Storm uh, in the 1990s, let alone, Vietnam or Korea. And so the converse of that is many of the people who would have died instead lived with debilitating injuries of one sort or another, but many of them survived and were able to go back into conflict after they healed. But people could look at the casualties of the war and say, well, that's not so bad compared to the casualties of earlier war, when in reality, the fighting was quite protracted and the fighting was quite brutal. Urban combat, very intense urban combat against intransigent foes. And many of the people, and not to mention, there were also a great many IEDs that just went off in the middle of convoys, and you had no idea when it would go off. And many of those IEDs just went off and killed or injured people. And then sometimes the IED was the beginning of a ambush. So, and ambushes they're not huge battles with thousands of soldiers on each side that are going to make case studies at the war college, but they are really intense, brutal encounters for the people who have to fight in them, the people who live through them. And so today on Twitter, I noticed a lot of people from those conflicts who are who have been out of the war long enough and have begun digesting their experiences enough to begin sharing their stories of what they went through in those years of war they experienced, what buddies of theirs went through, those who survived and those who didn't, and those who survived to come back to civilian life who later fell to drug use or alcoholism or criminality or suicide, what they went through, and share them publicly on their accounts. And I read a few of them today, and I've been reading others over the last couple of years. And it's a very sobering series of accounts. And those soldiers who came back but died to suicide or alcoholism or drug abuse, uh, they are they did not die in combat, but they were still casualties of the war. And I feel like they should also be counted among the people that we remember on Memorial Day. Those who were lethally wounded in spirit or lethally wounded in ways that took longer to manifest, but were no less real. And a lot of them reached out for help from the Veterans Association, Veterans Administration, and reached out for help in other ways and didn't know where to find it or didn't find it. And a lot of them felt like they fell into despair. They didn't feel like there was any help available to them anywhere. And that's a bleak and dark way to live. To feel like that there's no one you can turn to or no one who'll understand. And I always think of people like that, and I just hope that there is some peace and some possibility for redemption in the next life, some possibility for forgiveness in the next life. I just hope they can have their burdens lifted and find the peace that they were denied in this world. So on this Memorial Day, I would like to remember all the people who not only died in battle, but also came back with wounds that took longer to manifest, and to remember them too.
Well said.
So that being our Memorial Day section, let's go on. Let's go ahead and move on and see if we have any news this week. Any entertainment news?
Let's see. I think if you're into video games, there's a little bit of griping about $80 price points on AAA games and the expensive, long to make games uh, are not serving their customers so much. There's the
Randy Pitchford, who's the guy in charge of Gearbox Games, who did the Borderlands series and was heavily involved in the Borderlands movie, that surprise sleeper hit from last year. He said this week, who also created that completely broken Aliens Colonial Marines game that turned out the AI was completely broken because somebody mistyped a line in a config file. That all you had to do was change like 4 letters and the game was completely fixed. That Randy Pitchford, he said this week that the $80 price tag for Borderlands 4 was completely justified because real fans would come up with a way to pay it. And I just think that that is a little bit tone deaf. I just think that in this day and age where gamers are organizing to let crappy games die on the vine successfully, apparently, with Concord and Veilguard and at least 2 more to their kill count, that's the kind of thing you don't want to say is, you know, get lost and die, gamers. I'm going to charge you $80, and if you're a real fan, you're just going to pay it, and that's it. I don't think that was a wise position to take.
Nope, doesn't sound like it.
Especially given how bad the last Borderlands game was.
Yeah, the whole genre's pretty much run its course at this point.
Also, there was another quote-unquote modern audiences game compared to one of the really sexy Korean games, went head-to-head with each other, and guess which one won?
Yeah. Best Korea. No, the other Korea.
Marathon, Bungie's game that I think I was talking about last week about how they stole all the art from one single account on Twitter. They stole everything from one account on Twitter.
From one account?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think I saw this story right. It was just I don't have his name in front of me, but he had evidence. He says, "Yeah, and he was showing screenshots of art that only he could have created."
And it literally had, it was it literally had her signature on it that they had halfway but not all the way erased. But the reason why Bungie, the joke was that I made on Twitter, was the reason why Bungie thought they could get away with it was because Borderlands stole its entire art style off of one video somebody made that was broadcast on MTV once. So that's why they thought they could get away with it, because Gearbox Software got away with it. It was just a neat little callback there. But anyways, Sony has announced that they are delaying Marathon. That it's gotten so much bad press in the last 2 weeks that people working on it have gotten so hammered in public that they're just putting it off for now. One assumes that they're doing it in order to get rid of, well, basically everything. They're having to redo all of their art and maybe their entire art style. And who knows how much that's going to cost them, because redoing everything from the ground up in your visuals is going to be that's got to be hideously expensive. Considering their entire palette their entire color palette came from this art style that they stole. But is it just, I guess they could keep it, but that's not going to endear themselves to the people who are angry already. Also, Xbox apparently announced that it's not just, and I didn't get to the like announcement itself. I just passed by this. Um, it looks like they announced they're bringing more of their Game Pass games to the Sony PlayStation.
Yeah.
So if you really want to play Xbox games with an inferior controller, you're set. I admit, if you could buy an Xbox style controller for Sony, I'd be more interested in playing Sony. Um, I just can't use the shoulder buttons as my primary buttons. The triggers have to be the primary buttons, and use the shoulder buttons to do like rare things. That's just, and I love the offset joysticks. I have owned a Sony PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, one of those. I think it's the 3, but I just couldn't get used to their controller. So,
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, the absolute failure on Microsoft's part. Of course, I mean anybody interested in console games knows that Microsoft dropped the ball a long time ago, ever since the Xbox 360, when Microsoft dominated that market. Um, they just don't anymore. Um, Huge unforced error. And the Game Pass was similar, right? If they've got to move these games to other services, Game Pass isn't working the way they want it to.
Game Pass is a vast sea of mostly mediocre games. That's that's just the way it is. Which is fine because the entire gaming, all of video games right now, is a vast sea of mostly mediocre games. Uh, or bad games. A large portions of it are just bad games. Um, Mediocre games are now, you know, good games in comparison to where the rare good game that comes out really stands out because they're so rare anymore. And even the big name studios are just pumping out absolute garbage people hate. Suicide Squad coming out from a studio that had produced two great Batman games and one really bad Batman game. Arkham City, not Arkham City. What was the one after that? Arkham Knight with a K. Arkham Knight. I hated Arkham
Yeah.
Knight. I didn't like that at all. But Arkham Asylum and Arkham City were both really good games. Um, and it's just, and then you see why they went bad with the quote unquote remaster of Arkham City when they desexualized all the characters. Uh, they turned Poison Ivy. They erased all her sexiness. And that's just endemic across the industry, like it is in movies and comics and all kinds of other industries. You're not allowed to show beautiful women. You're not allowed to show sexy women. And it's that's why Korea is having so many hits right now, is they're pairing good gameplay with attractive characters. So yeah, the video games are dying. Video games are not making as much money because they're not appealing to the audience who wants to pay money, and the audience who wants to pay money is not wanting to spend $80 on a game whose main characters are ugly, that's going to preach at them politically the whole game, and that's got bad gameplay to boot. What was the one, that really ugly lime green one with really overweight characters? Was that Concord or was that before Concord?
I don't remember that one.
Okay,
I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name.
so all of these things are just, they're compounding and compounding, and gamers are getting sick of it. And they are revolting and not buying them. There's even a term, it's non-binary.
I see what you did there.
That's not my term. People will say that, I am non-binary with this game. That means they're not going to buy it. They're not buying any game that doesn't offer fun gameplay with attractive characters, that doesn't preach at you. And they're killing games. So until the companies wake up and realize what needs to go on, that's it. And Randy Pitchford yelling at people to buy his game for $80, elsewise they're not real fans. This is just not the time to do it. Doom, the Dark Ages came out to terrible sales or mediocre sales. And those are on platforms that the other games, even when they were on the game store or the Game Pass, saw good solid sales of other titles. Game Pass games will sell on Steam and on PC if they're good. Because we know they do. And Doom the Dark Ages just didn't. So Game Pass will result in lower sales, obviously, but it won't kill your sales entirely. So if your sales on non-console, non-Xbox platforms are low, it's because your game isn't satisfying the market and you did something wrong. And apparently with Doom, the Dark Ages, it was that the game is for people who can't play first-person shooters. Your precision of aiming and your quickness in turning and being able to reorient yourself had nothing to do with it. It was basically Simon. You remember Simon, the
Yeah,
little machine where it lit up and you have to hit the right colors?
right, yeah. It's like Simon Says.
Apparently, Simon Says, yeah. Apparently, Doom: The Dark Ages is about the enemy flashes a certain color, and you shoot the weapon that's strong against that color. And that's the only
Huh.
weapon you need to shoot. If you shoot that weapon, you'll hurt them. And if you shoot any other weapon, you won't.
That sounds a little dull.
I believe that traditional players of first person shooters did not find it the kind of game that they enjoyed.
Sounds about right.
So you jogged my memory of all the things I wanted to talk about this week, but I couldn't remember.
Hey, man, that's what I'm here for.
Did you have anything else entertainment related?
No, and I'm done jogging your memory.
Okay. Um, I did not have a chance to watch Mission Impossible this weekend. Do you want to talk about it? Or do you want to postpone it to next week's show?
Let's save it for next week's show. If you think you can go
Okay.
see it, let's do that.
Yeah, I think I can go see it this week.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about Burial Ground and Horror Express. Um, both of these are obscure or kind of obscure horror movies from the 70s. And I'm going to talk about Horror Express first. No, I'm going to talk about Burial Ground first. Um, because the only reason I wanted to talk about or wanted to watch Burial Ground is several months ago, I found this picture of zombies. And it was just a couple of stills of zombies, and they looked fantastic. And I could tell they were from a movie, and I didn't know what movie it was. But they were absolutely fantastic makeup. The absolute best zombie makeup I had ever seen in any movie ever. And I loved it. So I was looking at that zombie makeup picture and I was like, wow. And it's just stuck in my head. And finally, the other day, I was flipping through this new free movie service, a legit free movie service, not a sub rosa free movie service that you get on the dark web or something. It's not a free movie service you have to sign a blood oath in. It's something anybody can access. And I was flipping through their horror section, and I passed by this movie, Burial Ground, and it had a picture of these same zombies. And it was of the same area. It was a slightly different picture, but it was of the same terrain that the picture I got was from. And I thought to myself, holy crow, that's the movie. That's the movie I got it from. And so immediately I decided, you know what? I just need to watch this crazy good zombie movie because the zombie uh, makeup and everything is just so fantastic. So you if you want to know what it was in the makeup, I want to describe it to you. It had They had dry leathery skin that was discolored. They also had maggots, live maggots, wriggling maggots on the faces of the zombie. There were chunks of the face missing, like the nose was missing or pieces out of the cheek or whatever. Their eyes were sunken so deep that you couldn't see them. No nose, just hints of bone structure under the face. They had rents sometimes where you could see the deeper flesh, and they were bright red and still kind of gooey. Um, and they were mottled. Their skin wasn't one color of green or wherever, they were all mottled. So every zombie on screen was wearing masks uh, or or appliances, rubber appliances. It was just absolutely fabulous. and they were genuinely, they weren't terrifying because I've seen so many zombie movies, but they were just absolutely fantastic at conveying the feel that this is something that has been dead for a long time, but hasn't decayed beyond just the surface. So I'm going on and on about the makeup because it was just so spectacular. It is better than the makeup in any other zombie movie I can remember right now. And I'm going on about the makeup so much because it's the best thing about the movie, and the rest of the movie isn't so great.
Oh,
The rest of the movie's kind of a letdown. The plot's really dumb. The setup, the initial setup in the beginning uh, had some promise, but it's like they ran out of money and didn't film some of the scenes right at the beginning. So there's some confusing jumps, and then a bunch of scenes near the end. It's like they didn't know how to end the movie, and so they just kept on adding more scenes uh, until everything was done, and it never really had a story ending. Events just stopped happening because there wasn't anything else that could be done. Um, the zombies were relentless. Uh, they had this way of just popping up everywhere. Um, they were slow and stumbling, but they just always got to places way quicker than you would expect them to get there. Uh, there were some really, and I mean really, this one subplot was just bizarre. It's a movie. It was made in Italy, so uh, it made in Italy during the '70s, and there were some really weird movies coming out during the '60s and '70s. Drugs may have been involved. I'm not sure, but one of the weird subplots was this mom who was married to a new man. Her other husband either died or divorced her or whatever. And her strangely mature son with big bug eyes and a bold haircut, who deeply, deeply, almost murderously resents the new man in her life, who incestuously loves his mother.
gross.
Um, and maybe the '70s were a different time and that sort of thing played differently. I don't know. But it was like, really? It was just a subplot. They didn't dwell on it, but it was really uncomfortable. I was like, no. Um, and then there was a young couple who was in love, who was just kind of a wholesome young couple in love. And there was an older couple. Uh, and then everybody breaks apart at one point because they're here on a vacation weekend to visit with this archaeologist friend they know who discovered some ancient Etruscan ruins on his Roman villa he owns. And he'd been excavating these Etruscan ruins. And at the very beginning of the movie, his excavation of these Etruscan ruins brings to life tombs of the still living dead. And that's where all this starts. And they come out to um, kill the living and eat them. It's a zombie movie. That's a pretty traditional beginning.
Yep, nothing strange happening so far.
And they're all here for literally a vacation. They're just here to eat good food at his house because he's wealthy. He's got a couple servants. Um, Now, this doesn't get explained to you. You don't get told this. You have to infer this from things that get said halfway through the movie. You just have a couple who shows up to the gate of the house and the gate's locked. And they're talking about going in and saying, oh, yeah, this archaeologist, he doesn't have a telephone because he doesn't like them. He just only deals with people through mail. That's why you can't call up to the house from the gate. You have to ring the buzzer. And then they get in, and then the very next scene is this couple at dinner with the kid who is in the car and four other people that just show up at random who you don't know who they are. You don't know why they're there, but they're sitting there like friends, like they're supposed to be there, but nobody's ever mentioned them. You didn't know that this couple was going to be there with other people. You didn't know this was a planned vacation for a bunch of people. These people just suddenly like teleport into the movie. And you're just kind of bewildered. And you get to know that, okay, they seem to know each other and maybe they're friends, but it isn't until half an hour later, after people begin dying, that they tell you, oh, yes, we were all invited here by the archaeologist to come to this mansion. Where is he? And you're like, oh, now I understand the beginning of the movie. It's just, you're like, surely you could have a shot of them walking in the house and saying, oh, Chuck and Diane, it's nice to meet you here. We're so glad that all four of us came up, or all six of us came up for this party. And then you go to the dinner. So, the very next morning, they go out and the couples break up, and it's Italy. They go to various secret places or private places, and they start to make out, and the guys are trying to convince their gals to make love. And then one of the pair is going off and they're painting a beautiful painting. And that's when the zombies show up and start chasing people. And from then on in, it's trying to get away from the zombies, trying to kill the zombies, and people getting killed by the zombies. I just have to say this line. These zombies are like smart zombies. They coordinate their attacks. They organize distractions. They can climb like ladders and climb up the side of a house. So they're really much, much smarter than any zombies you've ever seen in any other movie, or that I've ever seen in any other movie. So they're actually deadly zombies, and there's reasons for it. When they're getting killed, they know to retreat and reorganize and make a new plan. At one point, the people figure out maybe they're coming for something in the house that the archaeology professor took from them. And since they're breaking into the house successfully, they figure, and this is a literal line said in the movie, why don't we just let them in the house and then see if they go away?
Yeah.
So there are extenuating circumstances for that decision. And you can see where that decision kind of makes sense. However, this does not prove to be a successful plan. It does not play out the way they hoped. Oh, these zombies, they can also use tools. They can use weapons. They can throw things at you and kill you with them. They throw things at you hard enough to kill you just by throwing like stones and stuff at you.
Interesting.
So at one point, this woman looks out a window to see the zombies doing something. And instead of darting back in the window and shutting it, she just stares at them, watching them, trying to figure out what they're doing. So one of them, who's been climbing up the wall, stabs her. Oh no, one of them on the ground has a poker for a fire poker, right? He hurls it at her, and it goes through her hand and pins her to the wooden shutter. So it pins her hand to the wooden shutter like she's being crucified, right?
Okay.
She's trying to pull her hand free, and another one comes up with a scythe and kills her because
Right.
her head's out the window. So they can throw things hard, they can make plans, use tools, and engage in teamwork. So even though they're slow walking zombies, they are still things that are not pushovers. They can team up. Three of them teamed up in one group to grab a guy at the same time and pull him to the ground. He thought they were slow. He thought he could just dodge around them. Nope, three of them grabbed him at the same time and tackled him, just like football players do. So
Wow.
yeah, it's unfortunate because all the things I'm describing would be fun, would be interesting in a better movie. The movie tried really, really hard. It's got genuinely gorgeous actresses in it, just really beautiful actresses, which was a nice change of pace for modern movies. And there were some clever things done in the movie, and there were some things to like about the movie, but it just, the plot, the story of the movie just wasn't there, and the ending of the movie was just kind of meandering. So overall, it was a disappointment.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. But the zombies looked great.
Take what you can get.
Yeah. I mentioned that on Twitter, like the plan. I said, real plan from a zombie movie. Let's let them in and hope they go away. And Sandy Peterson, the designer of Call of Cthulhu, knew exactly which movie I was talking of because he loves Burial Ground. So it is a movie that will appeal to some people, and to those people who are listening, it might appeal to you. So if it sounds interesting, if it sounds something you can hang with, don't take my word for it. There is some nudity. It's a 1973 Italian movie. There is some nudity, um, some sexual content, and the little kid gets weird. I think he's actually played by an adult because he looks unusually mature. Um, but I don't know.
It's the 70s. Who knows anymore?
Yeah. So, anyways, that's Burial Ground. Um, and now for Horror Express. And again, I'm going to preface this movie with a little story. Back when I was 6 years old, it was still the 70s. I saw the ending of a movie in black and white on a small TV in Kentucky. We were between my dad's two tours of service in Germany for a couple of months. And I have remembered this movie for, you know, almost 40 years. I uh I just remember there being on a train these mindless creatures who I remembered as zombies with glowing eyes that if you looked into their eyes, you would become a zombie too. And I've looked for it every now and then, and I couldn't ever find the movie. And for the last year or so, I've been looking for it pretty regularly. Every time I see a movie that's on a train that's also a horror movie, I check it to see if this is the movie I remember. And the last one I hit had Jamie Lee Curtis in it. I can't remember the title of that movie, but it's like, nope, it's not this movie. I also remember this one scene where they set up this barricade and a bunch of soldiers had guns and they were trying to shoot and kill them, but somebody got behind the barricade and just wiped them out. And then I remember like there was fire and they were trying to kill the creatures with fire. Nope. Um, and then finally, this week, on the same free service that I was browsing and found that other horror movie on, I was browsing same night. I found a movie called Horror Express that had Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in it. And I looked through it, and it was this movie that I had remembered for almost 40 years, that I had been looking for almost 40 years. And I just kind of casually found on this free service. And so I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to watch this movie. And then the entire movie, up until the very end, isn't a zombie movie. And in fact, the very end isn't even really a zombie movie. And I, in my memories, had gotten garbled the order of some of the events at the end, but all the things I remembered from it were actually in there. The train, the barricade, the soldiers, them getting overrun, the creature with the bright eyes, um, turning people into zombies, and then walking around with bright eyes, and then the fire at the end. And I only saw the last few minutes of the movie before the credits, but I had remembered all of it since I was 6 years old.
Wow.
No, it's got to be, if I was 6 years old, it's got to be over 40 years. It's got to be over 45 years. I had remembered that for over 45 years. I've been looking for this movie. So, was I bitterly disappointed by a movie that I had been waiting over 45 years to rewatch or to actually watch in its entirety?
That's quite a lead up.
It's a story, isn't it? So I'm gonna have to say, I did really enjoy this movie. Um, it is a 1970s horror movie, so it's got 1970s special effects, and people can, and 1970s makeup effects, and 1970s creature effects, and people can pick it apart all they want. Um, it has Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in it, and they just do their thing. They have gravitas. They add weight and seriousness to any lines they're saying. Oh, by the way, Simon Hogg reminds us today is Peter Cushing's birthday, so I guess that's apropos for the show. They add weight and um, gravitas to any line they deliver. They just make it sound believable. You just believe them. The movie isn't a zombie movie, but it is a great monster movie. Christopher Lee is, surprisingly enough, an archaeologist. Don't get back to the other movie. And he finds this completely preserved fossil. It's not actually a fossil, that's just the word the movie uses. In the ice, it's set in the Victorian times. So this is it pre World War II, pre World War One, or just after? No, it's pre World War One because there's still a czar in Russia.
Yeah.
It's not Soviet Russia yet, so it's pre World War One. In China, he finds in this frozen cave a 2 million-year-old half human, half ape specimen, perfectly preserved in ice. So he's going back to England to present his findings. He's a world famous, world traveling archaeologist. He's going back to England to present his findings to the Royal Archaeological Society. And he meets at the train station. He's going to get on the Trans Siberian Railroad. He meets at the train station Peter Cushing, who's another Englishman. And they're the only Englishmen in this country full of Russians and Chinese and Polish nobles and diplomats, all these other people. A German engineer is on the train. And so he puts a thief tries to break into this trunk and he dies, lies collapsed on the floor around the trunk, and his eyes are pure white. There's nothing in them. And there's this big hullabaloo around the train. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing have to basically threaten to kill the station manager to get Christopher Lee's ticket because he's corrupt and he's the double booked passage in the berth. And these are cars where you have an upper and a lower berth for people to sleep in because it's going to be a long overnight trip. By the way, Telly Savalas is also in the movie. He's probably the other big name you'll
Bro, is he
recognize. I
in
don't think
this
any of the
movie?
other people in the movie, they've all appeared, or many of them have appeared in other movies, but I don't think would recognize him. Telly Savalas is the other big name. And John had a great description of his part. If you want to
Yeah, man. This is
try to
great
give that
because
description again of Telly Savalas's part.
yes, so Telly Savalas comes in the end of the movie, near
Oh,
the
well,
end of the movie.
we've had another mic failure.
Hey, can you hear me now?
He's
Uh,
talking, I can't hear him.
that's right. So I'm gonna keep going because everybody else can probably hear me. Yeah. So Telly Savalle comes in near the
Anyways,
end of the
um,
film and
this
absolutely
sneak
chews
thief
all the
opens up
scenery. It's
the
great.
uh, opens up the trunk that's got the specimen in it, falls to the ground, and his eyes have gone white. And they come out, and the station manager is all kinds of upset. He tries to blame them. He tries to crack open the trunk, and Peter Cushing won't let him because this is like a career making discovery. This is like an amazing discovery that, uh,
Yo,
oh, I think it's
wonder if you can hear me now.
yes, I can. And I think it's my web browser that was broken.
Womp womp. Welcome back.
I
That's okay. I gave the chat my description. You just didn't get to hear it again.
hope I wasn't talking over you.
It happens.
So they haul the trunk on board, and it turns out that this 2 million-year-old creature, half ape man, half human, isn't dead. And it comes out and does some shenanigans. And it turns out that even shooting it and killing its body hasn't killed it. And it gets out of its body and into someone else on the train. And then it turns into this creepy mystery as to what's going on. And they try to hunt down who the new monster is as various victims pile up on the train. And it's complicated by there being a thief on board who's trying to steal something else out of the baggage car. It's complicated by um, one of the noble's wife kind of having a thing for Peter Cushing, even though she's married. Um, and it's complicated by the police inspector trying to solve the case, even though he doesn't believe in any of the strange things that are happening. He's demanding that these strange things can't be happening because they're supernatural in origin. And all of these strange things are just going on uh, that complicate this case. So it's a lot more of a murder mystery. It's a lot more of a thriller. And it deals a lot more with the distant past and archaeology to help try and figure out what this creature was and where it came from, and trying to figure out they have to do an autopsy of the people who died to see what happened to them, to try and figure out how this creature kills and why it kills and what it kills for. And the whole thing comes together in a single explanation. And then there is sort of the climax when things go to pot and they have to defend themselves um, with techniques that they've deduced from what they know of the creature. And so I found it an enjoyable movie. Um, Again, the women in it were just fantastically gorgeous. Um,
That's always a plus.
Well, and I'm just astounded that back in the day, even movies that weren't made by mainstream Hollywood studios, by actresses that weren't in very many movies, they turned out credible performances. They turned out good performances, and they were incredibly beautiful. That was not a rare thing. That was not a standout thing. That was just the way it was. And nowadays, that's almost never the way it is. There are good actresses out there who are beautiful, who are not being cast in movies. We know that because there was a time in which that was just the way it was. You don't have to settle for beautiful women who are bad actresses or good actresses who are above average, who are good looking, but kind of blocky or just not good looking. You can have glamorous women in movies who can act even in, you know, small budgeted horror movies. It didn't used to be a rare thing. And I know for a fact that no one can tell me that since 1973 to today, this movie was made in 1973, that all the good looking women just stopped being born.
It's true.
So, um, anyways, I enjoyed the movie. Um, I would recommend the movie. Uh, for whom this sort of movie sounds like it's fun. Um, it's not a it's not an action movie. It's not a high drama movie. It's a horror movie. It's a creature feature movie. So, but it's a fun creature feature movie.
Yeah, it is. I appreciated the different. Uh, they made a pretense at having some sort of intrigue with the um, noblewoman and the inspectors and um, the people of different nationalities all on the Trans-Siberian Rail at the same time. Like they it was a murder mystery, but it was also a monster murder mystery, which was kind of cool.
And whereas in Burial Ground, they were genuinely pretty dumb. The characters in the movie were genuinely pretty dumb, all of them. All the things they decided to do were pretty much dumb. The people in this movie who made mistakes, the mistakes they made were only mistakes because we, the audience, had information they didn't have. From their point of view, they weren't mistakes at all. Like the thief who broke into the trunk in the station, he had no way of knowing there was a monster in there who would kill him if he looked inside. He broke into the trunk. If there had been, jewels or anything else worth stealing inside, he would have stole it and gotten the heck out of there. It was a right decision from his point of view, being a thief. Um, Everybody else in the movie who made quote unquote bad decisions either had reasons for it or there was no reason for them to think that was a bad decision from their point of view. So they call that what, the idiot stick?
Yeah, or the idiot ball.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't think, at least I don't remember any noticeable times where people were beat with the idiot stick. So yeah, I liked I liked a movie whose only goal in life was to uh, make me entertained for a while and not lecture me. It was
Worthwhile.
nice. Yeah. So, well, I I really can't recommend Burial Ground because I don't think I don't think most people would enjoy it unless you are a zombie movie fan. Um, I actually enjoyed watching it. There were just a lot of dumb things about it, and the story wasn't great. But I enjoyed watching it for the zombie things, to watch zombies plotting and carrying out their little plans. I thought that was unique and neat, and I loved the zombie makeup. But I'm a huge zombie movie fan. I'm not a psychotic zombie movie fan. I won't watch every single no budget zombie movie, but I guess I'm a moderately strong zombie movie fan. So I can't really recommend it. I can recommend uh, I can recommend Horror Express to people who enjoy horror movies, and there isn't a lot of gore or any gore. I don't remember any gore. There might be a little bit of blood sometimes, um, but uh, there's no like organs flying about or brains hitting the wall or whatever. It's uh, it's a um, there's a there's an autopsy scene where they cut off the top of somebody's head and you see their brains, but it's not bloody. It doesn't spray blood everywhere and dripping. It's pretty sterile for that. So if you're worried about whether you can show it to teenagers or whatever, I think it'd be pretty safe down to like 13-year-old teenagers, depending on how mature they are, how squeamish they are. Um, 13-year-old boys would be fine. 13-year-old girls, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was great to see the movie, and it was great to find out that it actually was a good movie after 45 years of waiting to find it again. So, anyways, that's our show for today.
I love it. I don't have anything else to add, DW. It was good talking to you. It was good. I did just barely watch one of those movies in time, and we'll talk about Mission Impossible next week. I appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat too. Shout outs to, I know we're almost done, but Ben Wheeler from Pinkerton's Ghost. Thanks for joining us. Bradford Walker, always good to see you. Simon Hogwood, good morning, good evening. Great to see you. And I hope everybody listening later enjoys the show. I'm out.
I will say this: Ben Wheeler is coming on the show next week. He's your guest for next week, so be sure to tune in for that. Um, this has been Geek Gab for Monday, May 26th, 2025. We're here just about every week, just about the same time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on youtube.com/geekgab. Once again, that's youtube.com/geekgab. We're available on the iTunes Store, on the Google Play Store, and on SoundCloud.com. Subscribe to us on the device of your choice. Just do a search for Geek Gab. You can find us on any of those places. To subscribe to us on the device of your choice, on your computer, or listen to us on the web. Man, I've all messed it up, so I'm just going to go ahead. We enjoy everyone who listened live. We want to thank everyone who will listen later. And a reminder, if you tune in on broadcast time, you get to participate in the chat and have fun talking to all the unusually intelligent and attractive members of the Geek Gab audience. Folks, we are signing out for today. But don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.